Hey, what's happening, guys? Pete here with mixbetternow.com and learningtomix.com. I hope you're all doing well. Today, I want to share 7 mix mistakes I used to make when I was starting out mixing. I want to kind of talk about them, go over them that way. Hopefully, you all can avoid the mistakes that I used to make.
What's up? This is Steven Slate. You are watching Mix Better Now.
All right, guys, so 7 mix mistakes I used to make back in the day. Now, I started my audio journey, recording, mixing, all that stuff, probably about 03-ish, 04, something like that, okay, a while ago. And I remember feeling overwhelmed and frustrated all the time for at least that first year or two, probably even 3 years, okay? It was difficult. There were not resources available at the time, such as YouTube, where you guys are watching this here, things like Mix Better Now or learningtomix.com, or any sort of communities where you could go online and learn about these things. It was kind of archaic in the fact I was often going to the library and trying to find hardcover books to take out and rent the books or whatever, and they weren't always there. You had to form relationships with people who knew stuff, and hopefully you could learn a nugget or two off of them. So we have it really good now, and that's a good thing, okay? So my goal in sharing these 7 mistakes I made with you is hopefully to ease that burden for you, to get you on your way a little bit faster, so it is, in fact, more enjoyable. So mistake number 1 that I used to make all the time was not using a high-pass filter. Using filtering in mixing is crucial, okay? Whether you're using a high-pass filter to sort of take out bottom end you don't need, or you're using a low-pass filter to take out high end you don't need, they're equally important. Let's take a quick peek here. I'm going to highlight an acoustic guitar track, and I'm going to show you exactly what I did here and just how easy it is to take this on board. So let's go ahead and see what this sounds like.
Dead roses, all the wine. I smell dead roses, dead roses in your hair. Can you smell roses?
All right, so I have an EQ pulled open on one of the acoustic guitar tracks. There's 2 acoustic guitar tracks. And if we take a look at the interface here, you're going to see this slope on the bottom. Now, look, this might seem pretty basic to some of you guys out there, and to others, you might be brand new, so this might be new for you, okay? But the idea of a high-pass filter, also known as a low-cut filter, so low-cut, high-pass, same thing. The concept behind it is we're taking out any low end that we don't need, okay? Now, some of it might be audible, some of it might not be audible. But nonetheless, it's important to use. Now, a sort of rule of thumb that you can start with is any instruments that you would use for low end, okay? Kick drum, bass guitar, subsynths, cellos, okay? Anything where the low end is important, you can sort of leave those alone and you don't have to use a high-pass filter on them. But on something like an acoustic guitar or a vocal, you're going to want to use a high-pass filter because there's just not really any important stuff at the very, very bottom end of what you're going to use. Now, I'm speaking in very general, broad terms here. There's always exceptions to everything, but a really easy way to sort of use your high-pass filter when you're starting out. I'm just going to pan this up the middle, even though I have it out to the right. So the way that I would do this is I would pull this all the way back here. So I'm high-passing to about 102. So if we pull this back, you're going to see it sort of disappear. I'll turn it off. And then the way I like to do it is I like to roll off the bottom until I can almost discern a loss of low end, and then I'll pull it back a little bit. There's many reasons that are advantageous for it. You're going to get a lot of low end, a lot of headroom later on in your mix. And you're also going to be carving away space for those other low-end instruments, okay? Let's quickly take a listen to this. So if I push it to 400, you're going to hear it starting to sound thin and not very good. Again, I'm just exaggerating all this stuff. So if I pull it back, okay, let's go back to around 100 where I had it. So as I was bypassing it in and out there, we're not able to hear any loss of bottom there. So guys, make sure you're high passing any of the instruments on your in your mix, on your track, vocals included in that. Where you do not need the bottom end, trust me, it will help your mix sound better. There will not be any low end buildup. You won't have overly bassy mixes, okay? I actually have a really funny, embarrassing story about not using a high pass filter. My buddy was getting married back in the day. We wrote a song for him to dance and recorded a song for him to dance to with his mom when he got married. So we did everything. And again, this was when I was starting out. And I'm thinking, oh, yeah, this is going to be great, blah, blah, blah. So the wedding goes on, and I didn't use any high-pass filters on the song at all. We're talking, we tracked bass. I think we used a drum VST. So the DJ's there playing everything. They start dancing. The song comes in, and it's just literally, you know, there's just so much bass in it, and it was humbling. But anyway, guys, use high pass filters. You will benefit from it greatly. Okay, mistake number 2 that I used to make was not putting my effects on 100% wet. This is imperative. If you are going to put an effect on a send and a return, as I have over here with buses, it is important to have your effect set to 100% wet. Now, depending on whatever reverb or delay you're using or chorus, okay, they all have dry wet knobs on them. So you can see right here, there's a mix knob. It is set to 100% wet. This is a plate reverb that I'm using on Andrew's vocal here. And it's important to just set it wet. Otherwise, you're going to get some of that dry vocal in there, and it's almost going to defeat the purpose of setting up a set and return. Let's have a quick listen.
Well, I should have kissed you, not dismissed you. Whoa. But I thought I'd lose you. I may amuse you. Oh.
So guys, make sure you have your effects set to 100% wet. I know even some effects, when you load them, like Echo Boy, will not default to 100% wet. So you have to just constantly check, make sure it's on wet. And sometimes if you toggle between different presets, it will change the wetness blend. Now, if you're going to use this as a direct insert on your track, then of course you're going to want to dial back the wetness. But if it's on a send, make sure it is wet. All right, so mistake number 3 that I used to make all the time was I did not use subtractive EQ when I should have. If something sounded not to my liking, I would just immediately reach ahead for a frequency and start boosting it. Subtractive EQ is very important for a number of reasons. Most of the time when mixing, there's elements, now in terms of EQ, there's elements of stuff that maybe doesn't sound exactly how we want. For example, there might be too much bottom on something. Something might be too bright. Oftentimes, there's a lot of low-mid buildup. Things can sound cardboardy or boxy. So I find that by using subtractive EQ, it's the first step in terms of getting that end sound that I want. Now, up on the screen, I've got a couple Pultecs. I've got an SSL. Pultecs are on the vocal. The SSL's on the piano. But if we take a look here on the vocal, so first thing I'm doing here is just I'm high passing again, right? Mistake number 1 I used to make was not high passing. So here it's called a low cut, same thing, to 80. I'm taking out some 200 here, all right? In the mids, or the low mids, I should say. And then now I'm finally, pushing up a little 12K here. But the important thing is taking out some of this 200. Now, let's just say something sounded very low, mid, heavy, right? It was muddy and it was cardboardy. So what I used to do was boost the low end and boost the top end to sort of compensate for that. Well, that was incorrect, or I believe that was incorrect, okay? So by taking out that low mid, it will actually bring up the low end and bring up the top end because you're removing that one area which is going to enhance everything else. I'm not saying don't boost. There's a time and a place for it. But the first thing I do, if something doesn't sound exactly how I want it, I zone in on those specific frequencies and I will roll them off. Let's just take a quick listen.
Well, I should have kissed you, not dismissed you. Whoa, but I thought I'd lose you. I may amuse you. Oh, and all of the moonlight sparkling down from the sky. Blue diamonds in your eyes.
So here on the piano, I'm taking out what looks to be 550, 600. Just, it's impossible to tell on here because it's somewhere between 300 and 800. But check this out. If I boost this frequency that I am in fact cutting, right, we got a lot of sort of muddiness going on there, a little bit of boxiness happening. So that's in fact why I cut there, is because I wanted to clean it up. So by taking that out, inherently things start to sound brighter. Things also start to just sort of come together, okay? So try and reach for your subtractive EQ first. I find it to be very helpful. Typically, I like to do my subtractive EQ, and then I like to go into a little bit of compression. Here I have the EQ before the compressor. And then often I'll boost a little bit after the compressor. Sometimes I'll boost going into the compressor, okay? But those are things that I would worry about a little bit later down the road. Just make sure you're using things like your high pass filter and using bells just to take out certain areas that maybe do not sound how you want them to. All right, mistake number 4 I used to make all the time was I mixed way too loud. My levels were too hot. Whether it was things that I would record or sessions that I would get my hands on to be able to mix, often the individual track levels were just way too hot, and then when you throw them all together, you bring the faders up, your overall level is going to be too hot, okay? So the first thing that I would suggest would be to use gain staging to your advantage. Bring the levels of things down, and there's a couple different ways that we can do this. The first thing I like to grab is to have a really good meter. For me, that's important to use metering. It's going to help you really achieve those levels you want to hit in terms of your overall RMS and then your peak level, okay? So let's just see where we're at right here.
Well, I should have kissed you, not dismissed you. Whoa.
Okay, so -16 for me as an average volume for a mix is the sweet spot, okay? I like to typically be somewhere between -18 RMS and -15 RMS. That way I have plenty of headroom left over for the mastering engineer, or if I'm going to master something, there's the headroom there, okay? It's easy to make things louder. We can always make things louder. We can't always make things quieter. So just as an example of something I'll do, if I'm bringing certain things into a session and I find it to be too loud, there's typically 2 ways I will turn the volume down. One would be to use a trim tool or a trim plugin as the first insert. So one thing I really like to use, the trim tool from Slate's virtual mix rack here. The reason I like to use this is because I am often using the Virtual Console collection in a lot of my mixes. So it's easy if I have this up to just drag something else in here. I'm not using them on this session because it was recorded through an SSL. So hence I don't need that. But for example, for me, if this piano was too loud, all I would have to do is use the trim tool to turn everything down before I started EQing and before I started compressing. Now, the reason that I use it first is because if you were to put it last or in between your compression and your EQ and your sweetening, you would wind up pushing more level either into an EQ or a compressor, and that's just, that's not really great. So I like to put it first. That way I know where I'm at. And typically here in Studio One, I like to shoot for something between -24 and -12 here on the meter. This will vary for you depending on whatever DAW you're using and how the metering is set up. But just find a very moderate spot to put things at, okay? If you're hovering up here around Unity, around 0, it's way too hot, it's way too loud. The other way we can get our level down would be if we come up here to the track level. Now, I'm working in Studio One, but if you're in Pro Tools or Logic or whatever, they're all going to have the same feature here, which is going to be your clip gain, okay? I call it clip gain. I used to work in Pro Tools. Now I'm in Studio One. It doesn't matter, but what we can do here is on the individual track level, we can come up here and we can pull the volume of the wave file down just like this, okay? So you're going to see right now I'm 4 dB down. It says difference of -4 dB. So I know that I just pulled this down 4 dB. I'm going to undo that, edit, undo, modify volume curve, or just hit Command Z. So you can go through, and before I start putting any plugins on the tracks, I like to get all my levels sitting in an appropriate spot, so that way when I pull all the faders up and I do my static mix, my overall volume on my mix bus is going to be somewhere around -18 RMS. It's going to help you out in the long run. Like I said, you can always make things louder, but you can't always turn things down and have them sound good. Mix mistake number 5 I used to make was I did not use an external hard drive to mix with. I used to just set up a session and I would save it to a folder on my internal hard drive and I would just kind of hack away. Now, there's nothing wrong with this. If you're doing that, that's fine, but it is more advantageous to use an external hard drive for a couple reasons. Number one, it's going to be a little bit faster for you. You're not going to bog down your machine, your computer, with all the data transmission going to and from your DAW to the folder that you're saving everything at. So I found that when I went to an external hard drive, everything sped up for me and it was a lot more stable. The other thing is it's easier to back that up once you have something on an external hard drive. So I run a multi-hard drive system. In front of me at the moment, I've got 5 external hard drives sitting in front of me, and then I back things up to a cloud area. Just remember, 1 is none, 2 is 1. So if you're going to back something up and you have it backed up 1 time, that's not a backup, it's just a copy. 2 times would be a backup, all right? So trust me, the worst thing that could ever happen would be to have a whole folder full of all your mixes and to lose that for some unfortunate way. The other thing is, if you save everything to an external hard drive, you're going to free up internal hard drive space on your computer for a lot of other things like software you might want to install, sample libraries, things like that. So guys, get yourself an external hard drive, use it, and then back it up twice. 1 is none, 2 is 1, do it. All right, on to mix mistake number 6 that I used to make. I used to monitor too loud. When I would listen to my speakers, I used to turn the volume up pretty loud because why wouldn't you, right? It's fun. Once you get things sort of sounding a certain way, you start rocking out and that's all good. But there's a couple disadvantages that come from monitoring too loud. Number one is you're going to get ear fatigue, okay? Which is going to essentially, it's that point you hit where everything starts to just kind of melt and blend together, and it's really tough to make objective decisions when you're mixing, right? Then it's time to take a rest, go kind of wash your ears out, so to speak. I like to just either listen to nothing or I'll listen to something else that sounds totally different to sort of reset my brain. But if you monitor at a lower level, you're going to be able to work for longer. And you're also going to save your ears, right? You don't want to lose any hearing. You don't want to develop any tinnitus or ringing, which I have extensive amounts of both being a stupid kid, being younger, a combination of a whole bunch of different things, playing music too loud, just really not protecting my hearing. And, I suffer from that now. So look, don't make the mistakes that I did. Turn your speakers down. I monitor around 75 dB. I have a decibel monitor out here, and that's about where it sits for me. Whether it's my A monitors or my B monitors, it's about 75 dB. And especially, guys, this is important for all you guys that mix on headphones. Please turn the volume down. I promise you will do damage to your hearing if you're mixing loud on headphones, and I don't want you to lose any hearing. Your hearing, you get one set of ears, right? And then once you do permanent damage, it doesn't come back. I'm not trying to nag you or be your dad. I'm just trying to help you out. And, I don't want you to have hearing loss like I do. I don't want you to, when I go to bed and everything's quiet, all I hear is blaring, ringing in my ears all the time. And it's not fun, and it can actually be scary. So monitor conservatively. The other thing is you're going to be able to hear everything well. You're going to be able to get balances at quieter levels. I can really tell what's going on with my low end when things are quiet. You're going to sort of get things hyped. You're going to get your Fletcher-Munson curve. Say that 5 times fast. Fletcher-Munson curve when you turn the volume up. Google it. I'm not going to get into that right now, but that's a real thing, and it will affect your mix decisions. Monitor conservatively. Okay, last but not least, mix mistake number 7 that I used to make all the time was I over-compressed everything. Way too much compression, and that killed all my dynamics, all my dynamic range, and it made everything sound bad. A general rule of thumb that I would recommend for beginners, I know it's difficult to be able to hear compression in the beginning, and even just to understand compression and what a compressor does can be a very difficult thing. But a couple tips I will give you, and I'm just going to go from the bus here just in general, okay? This applies to any track on the individual level, but a way to not get in trouble would be a couple things. Use low ratios, 1.5 to 1, 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4 to 1. I used to do stupid stuff like I'd do an 8 to 1 on my drum bus or something like that with a fast attack, and that would kill my transients. And look, here on the 2 bus, something I like to do is just about a 1.5 to 1 or a 2 to 1 ratio. Typically like to go with a slower attack and a faster release. It's kind of hard to get in trouble going with a slower attack time. Let's see how much compression I'm doing here.
I smell dead roses, dead roses in your hair. Can you smell roses?
Okay, so in the chorus, I'm doing about 0 to 3 dB of compression, and on the verse, now keep in mind, the chorus is always louder, so at those maximum points, that's the maximum amount of compression you're going to do. Let's see the verse.
Well, I should have kissed you, not dismissed you. Whoa, but I thought I'd lose you. I may amuse you.
All right, so about 0 to 2 on the mix bus there. Now look, the way that a varimute compressor works here is based upon, well, there's a couple different ways you could do it, but this one does have a threshold. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull back on the threshold and just listen to how bad it starts to sound when I overcompress this.
Well, I should have kissed you, not dismissed you. Whoa, but I thought I smelled dead roses, dead roses in your hair. Can you smell roses like candy?
So when I lower my threshold, it starts to sound squished. The dynamics are gone, and look, it's just not great. So especially if you don't know how to use compression, I would say just go easy with it, all right? Low ratios, slower attack times, faster to medium releases. If you have a fast attack and a slow release, that's going to probably sound the most squished, okay? So just stay away from it. And look, if you really don't know how to use a compressor, just step back and avoid it entirely, because you could actually screw things up and make it sound worse, and that is something we don't want. All right, guys, that's it for me. My name is Pete with mixbetternow.com. This has been the 7 mix mistakes that I used to make back in the day when I was starting out. I hope you guys can take some of this on board and it will help you. As always, I just want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. I hope you all have an awesome day, and I will catch you next time.
What's up? This is Steven Slate, and you are watching Mix Better Now.